Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, dear brothers and sisters. عظم الله لكم الأجر. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept your mourning grief on Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Welcome to Muharram Q&A, broadcasting from Wilayah TV. Brothers and sisters, we would like to notify you that any questions you guys have, you could go ahead and send it to us and we will answer it, inshallah ta'ala, on Twitter and WhatsApp on the links below. With me today is my brother. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh Mohammad. How are you doing, brother? Thank you for coming.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you so very much for having me. I'm very honored and also very thankful to have this opportunity again to continue our discussion about the lamentation over Imam Hussein salawatullah alayhi.
Thank you very much. I hope we have a fruitful conversation, inshallah.
Thank you, inshallah.
So we talked about on the previous episode about the reasons behind we lament about Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Now I want to ask, what are the different ways that we can mourn and be in sorrow for Imam Hussein alayhi salam, the way that we show it? Or does it always have to be in the heart? Do we have to show it? So could you please go ahead and talk about this topic.
Thank you so very much. Well, after talking about the core and the essence and the reasons why do we lament for Imam Hussein and we mourn over Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, we come up to many different ways that it is possible to show our grief for Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. Well, studying the narrations of Ahlul Bayt, going on to the history, seeing what has happened, taking a look at the notes that Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam have told us, have given us about this fact. It is something very enlightening. Tells us what are the most fruitful ways of lamentation, because it is something that God honors so much, lamenting for Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. Well, the first one is crying and weeping, and it is the most important one. Going to the narrations of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, we find that a lot of Imams alayhimus salam have talked so much. Even one studying the narrations might think that they have over-talked about this matter. They
showed great importance, significance to this fact.
Probably over-significance, but it is not over-significance. It is something that's real and nothing more than that. So the first thing, crying. You know, crying is a kind of a, in the words of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, especially Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi and Imam Sadiq sallallahu alayhi, we find crying as a pure way of worshipping God. It is a pure way.
Any manner of crying, or crying for specific manners?
Crying for a specific intention, and that is because of what has happened to
Imam Hussein
or
even crying from the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is also
that's also something very recommended. But right now we're talking about crying because of lamentation, right? Here it is stated in the words of Ahlul Bayt as a pure worship. Now, as we know, worshiping God has two parts, or it can have two qualities. Sometimes it is pure, means only for God you're doing this specific action. Sometimes it is impure, you know. You're doing this for God and also for somebody else to see, for other people to appreciate you.
Just riyah, showing off.
Yes.
And pretty much it's going to be like shirk, like on how they say.
Yes. So sometimes it is for showing off to the people. Sometimes it's no, I only intend for God to be satisfied. I only do that for God. And we call this al-ikhlas, right? To only do something for God.
Purely and intentionally
to be pure,
for Allah,
yes. Now, acquiring this purity is very difficult. To be pure in everything that you do, it is very difficult, because always there are a lot of things, a lot of intentions, a lot of probably destinations that might come to your mind, different purposes that might appear. And to become pure for God is a very difficult thing, and also it has one of the greatest rewards there is. Now, talking about crying, Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam have said that lamenting and crying for Imam Hussein salawatullah alayhi is always pure, this fact of crying. Why? Because if you are doing this to show off to other people that you are lamenting, you cannot really cry. You know, the tears won't fall off. You cannot shed tears.
What about if someone was crying, for example, for what happened to him, right? For example, some wicked person. And he was thinking about the bad things that he went through in life, and he wants to cry. And for example, he's sitting in a majlis, or he's sitting in a gathering where they remember Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and he starts crying. This person is crying, but who knows that he's crying for Imam Hussein or not?
In those occasions, we can connect the sadnesses and sorrows that we have. We can make a bridge and connect it to the hardships of Imam Hussein salawatullah alayhi. For example, Imam Riza salawatullah alayhi says, إن كنت باكيا لشيء
فابكي
للحسين عليه السلام. Yes, means if you're going to cry for anything, cry for Imam Hussein salawatullah alayhi. Sometimes the experiences of life that we have, the difficulties that we have, they make our hearts pure. They put us soften the heart. They put us in a situation that we become ready, and by the simplest and by the most delicate notes of Imam Hussein salawatullah alayhi, our eyes start to
cry, right?
Cry.
They start to shed.
Sometimes we are already crying for something, for example, bad that has happened for ourselves. And when we think about Imam Hussein, we figure out that what happened to him was much more difficult, and the things that he has done for ourselves,
break down more.
We can tear up more and cry more.
Thank you very much, Sheikh. Now, unfortunately, we have to take a short break. Brothers and sisters, we ask you to please stay tuned in. We will continue to answer this question from Wilayah TV station, Muharram Q&A. Thank you very much.
This is Karbala, not a piece of heaven, but even higher than that, for heaven too kneels before the glory of this little land. It seems as if all the love in the world has been poured into a pen, and only the name of this land has been written. Here, all the restless hearts gather in the name of their beloved, the master of the youth of paradise. It matters not what race and religion you have, for the only religion here is devotion. Whether you are Muslim, Christian, Jewish, Zoroastrian, Shia or Sunni, our Master treats everyone the same. Be proof that he is the Imam of all who exist in this world. From the moment he led the young Christian into his campsite and sent a messenger to the Ottoman Zuhair. If your heart is truly submitted to God, then you will surely find the truth, just like the pure old priest who recognized the light of the severed head, one that belongs to the son of prophet from a religion other than his own. This is why some pretentious Muslims had failed to see, for it had been long since they had not only closed their eyes to the truth, but even the ears could no longer hear it either. They could not hear the sounds of Hussein reciting the Quran, the angels wailing in the heavens, and Lady Zahra crying, Summun bukmun umyun fahum la yarji'un. How shameless was the soldier who held this word against Hussein and expected intercession from Prophet on the day of judgment. May the Lord, the angels, the Prophet, and his noble household forever damn those who killed Imam Hussein in cold blood. O my Mawla, we stand by this golden dome alone with all your devotees, and curse and detest those who have done you wrong forevermore. And we are with you every step of the way.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, dear brothers and sisters. Thank you for tuning back into Muharram Q&A, broadcasting from Wilayah TV. Azzamallah lakum al-ajr. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept your prayers, your worships, and your mourn and grief for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. we were asking the Sheikh a question of what are the ways that we can mourn on Imam Hussein alayhi salam. The first question was crying. It's available a lot in the sayings of Ahlul Bayt. It's also the actions of the prophets as well, the action of the Aimma alayhum salam. And that's enough for us to follow because they are our role models.
Yes, they have done. They themselves, as you have said, they have shown us practically that crying for Imam Hussein alayhi salam is something so recommended and appreciated by God. So they did more than the other people themselves, and we are following them. After crying, we find in the sayings of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, they say that, for instance, Man baka aw abka aw tabaka falahul jannah, means those who cry or make other people cry by bringing up
the stories, by
the stories,
being a eulogist, for example.
Yes, that happen, things that happen to Imam Hussein salawatullah, or any other Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Or those who tabaka, means they cannot shed tears,
but they try to cry.
Try to cry. They show that they are enduring sorrow. They are sad. They are experiencing this sadness. They show it. They cannot cry completely, but they show that they are very sad about this fact. People who do these three things, God will give them the heaven. And this is the greatest award, one of the greatest awards that you can ever have.
There are also, people may argue that there are rewards higher than heaven, that some sayings also state as well. Other than that, for example, there are sayings that you will be on the same level as Imam Hussein alayhi salam.
When you go to the heaven, there are different levels that you can be. For example, Ridwanullahi Akbar, God states in his book that me being content of you is a bigger blessing, is the better thing than just being in the heaven, or living with Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam in the heaven. So when you go to the heaven, the different levels you can have. But the fact of going there is one of the best things that can happen to a human being. So the first thing, as we talked about, crying or making other people cry or trying to show that you are crying. The second thing is it goes to the poems. When you say a poem, when you write a poem, and also you sing the poem in front of the people, and those poems talk about Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, they talk about the difficulties and hardships that Imam Hussein salawatullah alayhi wa alayhi and his Ahlul Bayt, they endured. So these people, sometimes we compose a poem to appreciate Ahlul Bayt, for example, to talk about the virtues that they had. Sometimes we compose poems to talk about the difficulties that they
went
endured.
through.
Yes,
there are very many examples as well, as poets would come to read to Imam Sadiq alayhi salam.
Yes, in the history, for example.
And also Abdul Khuzai for Imam Rida alayhi salam.
Yes. And they talked about these facts that we recently said. And Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, they appreciated them very well. They rewarded these kind of poets very well, showing that what you do is very valuable. So composing and talking about this, for example, we have a narration from Imam Sadiq that says those who impose a verse for us, by one verse, God will build a house for them in the heaven.
One verse of a poem, of course.
Yes, verse of a poem. So the composing poem about Ahlul Bayt can be very good. This is the other way of lamenting for Ahlul Bayt, showing your inner feelings and sorrow in a way of composing poems and telling other people. The third thing, which acts as a ground for these, is to throw gatherings. For instance, we can see in the time of Muharram and Safar and other occasions that we have the hardships of Ahlul Bayt, we are reminded by them. Many people in their houses or in the places that they have prepared, they kind of prepare a gathering. They invite many people, also they invite a scholar to talk for them about the hardships of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, about the difficulties, and they start to lament. So to throw these kind of gatherings and parties, many people gathering around talking about Ahlul Bayt. This can be one of the basic, one of the ground and preparing ways that gives us the opportunity to cry, because we are reminded in that gathering. Sometimes when you are by yourself or when you go with your friends outside, you are not much reminded about this. You just mind your own business. But when you go to these gatherings and everybody is there, they are listening, the person is talking about Ahlul Bayt, you are being reminded, you listen to them. So it becomes a good ground for you to cry for Ahlul Bayt, the first part that we said. So to have a summary, showing our grief in a way of crying or composing poems, telling other people, reminding other people, throwing these kind of gatherings. These can be very good and also narrated ways of
showing the mourning
for
of
Ahlul
Ahlul Bayt alayhi
Yes.
salam, specifically Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Unfortunately, brother, our time has finished today,
Thank you
and
so
unfortunately
much.
also for the dear viewers and audience, we are finished. We are out of time today, but we do have more answers for this question.
Yes.
This is just one example, crying for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Dear brothers and sisters, any question that you guys may have, you may send it to our Twitter account and our WhatsApp account on the links below. Please join us again on another Muharram Q&A broadcasting from Wilayah TV. Until now and the next show, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept your grief and mourn. And Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Keep us in your prayers.